What's up, guys? Welcome to RJ Fabrication. Come on in. This is your shop mascot, Blanca. Blanca, sit. Sit. Girl, shake. Yeah, that's a good girl. What do you say? That's right, that's right.
The cool thing about Hesperia is I love, like, it's kind of centrally located, like being heavily into off-road. Like, we have Barstow, we have so much cool stuff out there to go out in the desert and play. And then, you know, I can be snowboarding in 50 minutes, or I could be at the beach in an hour and 15 minutes, or, you know, we have Silverwood Lake right here, Big Bear, Arrowhead. Like, there's tons to do, so it's pretty fun. So what we do at RJ Fabrication is we try to do our very best job at high-end luxury pre-runners, high-end hot rods, super good fit and finish. And one of the cool things about that is, you know, I started out doing drag race cars and then did quite a few hot rods for people. And you know, and those guys they want it nice. They want the fit and finish good. They want everything to line up good and, you know, and just blend well. And so to bring that over into the off-road section of it is kind of fun because, you know, I think there was a couple high-end stuff like Stewart's Raceworks, and Geyser Brothers built some, you know, super nice trucks. Don Dell did some really, really nice stuff. And so I just thought there was room for one more. And whether it was or wasn't, I guess didn't matter. That's just how I wanted to do it. But I just wanted to build really nice high-end pre-runners that the fit and finish was as good as it was in the hot rod industry. Hey, this is Rob Lindsay, owner of RJ Fabrication, and this is my crew. We got Marty McFly, my main mechanic. Everybody calls him the crew chief. We got Nick Darger, my main fabricator, super talented fabricator, pretty much well-rounded all-around guy. We got Dallas Brook, another fabricator, super good with sheet metal and tubing. We got Aiden Geiger, he's our young guy. He's learning, but he's coming leaps and bounds. So in this episode, you're going to get a glimpse of what we're currently building and working on. We have quite a few projects going at the moment. We have my personal, you know, 3rd gen Camaro. We've brought that back down to the shop just to put it back in service. Kind of wanted to do some more street racing with it. So new engine, new front suspension, stuff like that. Obviously the Willys, we're going to be going over that. That's our flagship stuff. You'll be seeing a lot of that. We have the all-wheel drive Datsun 510 that we're building at the moment. We have a really high-end 1965 F100 pre-runner that we're building. We kind of have carte blanche on that one as well, so that's going to be a pretty epic build for us. We have Travis's 02 Silverado. We'll be going over that. You'll be seeing that. We have a 1st gen 69 Camaro with an LSA engine in it. That's going to be leaving for wiring, but you'll be seeing that come and go. And then we also have the Mini Ranger getting put back together. Just passion for cars. Like when I was young, I just loved cars more than anything. And my whole family wasn't into cars. Like that's what's kind of weird is they're all in the medical field. So, you know, dinner table conversation was always about that. And I'm just daydreaming about cars. So how it actually, the business got started was accidental. I built my first pro street car when I bought my first house, had a little shop behind there and built my first pro street car, and people just started asking me, hey, can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? Started doing a little bit of street racing. That made it more popular. People just started asking more and more.
People say if it's you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life, and it's kind of true. You work hard here, but it's rewarding work. It's the kind of work where when you're done, you're tired, and you're covered in metal dust, and you stink, and you're just covered, you know, you got oil all over yourself and stuff. You feel good about it. It's worth it. You're in the trenches there. You're with other people like-minded, just like, you know, I am. You know, you're all going for this common goal of making the most badass car or truck out there. And when you finish the end of the day with this kind of work, you can step back and physically see another piece of metal welded onto the part or another thing added to the truck or car, and it's very rewarding.
It is work some days, but most days it's not like work. You enjoy what you're doing. It's such a passion, and working with the guys that I work with, we all get along, we all have a good time. Yet we get stuff done and we all bounce ideas off of each other. So you're not just doing one thing, you're doing multiple things. So it's not that repetition style work too. Being passionate about cars in the automotive industry, when you're doing something that you're passionate about, it's not like work. It's way more enjoyable. You can't wait to see the finished product and to see the people have a good time with it.
For me, it's you can call it problem solving. I like when you have a component you want to fit into a truck or a car, and you look at it and well, there's no way that's going to fit. Everything's too big, and then you engineer something, or you come up with a strange design or something new that can relocate components and make something impossible possible. You know, it's the challenge of it, and you know, you go through a few iterations of design to get there. But it's really rewarding to make something that no one else can do or will even attempt work out.
I don't know, I just got called into the side-by-side industry and stuff like that, and I just kind of kept going down that rabbit hole and ended up here, and I don't know, I just enjoy doing it. It's not one of those jobs where you can get proficient at doing one thing over. Like, I was building side-by-side cages for 5 years. Coming here, it's like, okay, well, you're good at that, proficient at that, but we're gonna have you go do this. It's pretty much just adding things onto the resume of how to just fabricate headers, water lines, chassis. This is more build the entire vehicle from start to finish.
It doesn't feel like work. It's always, because I'm always thinking, I'm like Rob, I'm always thinking 1,000 miles an hour. I'm always coming up with, trying to come up with new ideas to make something cooler, stronger, faster, whatever it is. And this kind of helps me use my skills and my imagination to build kind of whatever I want that could be cool or strong or better, something along those lines.
All right, guys, so this is the Mini Ranger, which is, a miniature version. We call it the Mini Ranger. It's a miniature version of the big Ranger luxury pre-runner. Man, it is a 2018 Turbo S platform. We stretched the wheelbase 16 inches and ordered a body from Ben at K9 Racing. And then we modified the body a little bit. We added this B-pillar in here to try to break it up so that it looks like an older truck. Added these scoops for the rear section, like the Ranger has. Like, these fenders were Raptor fenders, so we modified them and made them look like more like the McQueen Ranger fenders that they make for us. Full luxury interior, all of our custom suspension front and rear, miniature luxury pre-runner. That's what's kind of cool about it. If you look inside, like, we're putting it together right now. I actually rolled it for the photo shoot for the 2020 January issue of UTV Sports Magazine. And so we're putting it back together currently right now. So that's why the lights are missing. It's got tape on the doors. We're just assembling and cleaning it all up. All this stuff is kind of scaled down in SolidWorks. So this is a 3/4 version of the big shock mount on the bigger truck. So you have your coilover mount here, then you have all this plate work that's kind of one of our signature series style type stuff that we do as far as shock mounts, so that you can incorporate the bypass shock in here. Dual fillers on both sides, so you can fill up at either side of the gas station, same way the big trucks are. And then we put the radiator and the intercooler in the back, just so it simulates the way the transcoolers are on the bigger trucks as well. So the other super neat feature for it is we have the flip up dual spare trunk assembly like we have on all the big trucks as well. So this cage assembly just comes down and cam locks with this handle, puts pressure in the center of the wheels, so that the wheels are being held, not the tire. So if you have a flat tire or an aired up tire, it still stays locked into the cage. And then another cool feature is the trunk. So we always do a decent sized trunk in these things. Not sure what's even in here. Oh, it's empty, but yeah, so our big trucks are the same way. So we just scaled this down for this version of a, it's like a facade truck. I guess it really isn't. Now it's a truck built out of a 2018 Turbo S. Another cool feature, most side-by-sides don't have bypass shocks in the rear. This one does. You can't get this thing to buck if you try. It's the smoothest, most plush riding vehicle I own, hands down. This is the 69 Camaro for our customer, Kurt Yeager. We're in final assembly right now. Man, we literally get thousands of hours wrapped up into these kind of builds. As you can see, we tape everything off just to keep things from getting scratched. Like, when you spend upwards of 30 grand for a paint job, you want to just make sure that you aren't scratching or dinging or messing stuff up. So LSA supercharged engine in it, 4L80 transmission from Maximum Transmission. We got the low carb bump shifter, all Detroit Speed and Engineering, suspension, Willwood big brakes all the way around. One of the things is I actually widened the DSE tubs a little bit wider than how they come, so we can get a 345/30/19 tire in the rear. I think the biggest you can do with the DSE kit, I think, is a 315 on the 69 Camaro. So we wanted just a little bit bigger tire, but usually what's cool about our stuff, like, I don't know, some people say it's a waste of time to do, but I totally disagree. The underside of our cars are usually every bit as nice as the top side, if not nicer. And that's where the man hours come in. So we're modifying the dash to fit around the roll cage, modifying the AC vent, so all that will work with the roll cage. But this is gonna be one of those cars that completely does everything well. Brakes good, handles good, accelerates good, looks good, turn the key, fires up, everything works perfect like a brand new vehicle. So Gordon's 95 Ranger project, we nicknamed this thing the 1,000 horsepower Ranger. We're not gonna pull the hood off this episode, but we're just waiting on shocks to come back, which we actually got them yesterday, so they're sitting in boxes on the other side. So we have this scheduled for Monday. We'll put the shock package on this, back on this thing, and they just came back from the tuner. We just have a breather box. We just need to bump this side and just make sure it clears all the shock package on this side and get that bolted in. Then we can put the rest of the intake system and everything back together. And then we're ready to put this thing on the dyno and get this thing out to final shock tuning out in the desert. It's pretty much all together. A lot of people may have caught this at Off-Road Expo, but if you wanted to look inside, it's kind of dark to see, but it's pretty luxurious. One of the nicer features about this particular truck is the interior. Full luxury interior with heat and AC, heated seats, lumbar support, adjustable lumbar support, fully adjustable seats. This kind of makes it a pretty nice office if you're gonna be spending some time in here. Power windows. One of the things, the seats don't recline in the off-road racing world, so we just don't have reclinable seats, but they're adjustable other than that. So some of the long trips, like when you're down in Mexico, it makes it a little bit more comfortable to be in the truck for that long. And then just like a lot of the trucks that we do, like our signature series stuff, this is a very similar shock mount to what's on the Ranger and a lot of the other trucks we do. Bypass goes here in this hole. The coilover goes in this hole, fire extinguishers, fuel cells right here, trans coolers. We just pulled the cover back just so you guys can see it. But another neat feature about this is the painter, Travis Sylvester, the guy that painted this, he does Lumalore paint where this actual logo lights up at night. So all the kind of off-white looking color actually is luminescent paint. And so when you put electric charge to it, it actually lights up, which is kind of neat and fun. So yeah, and then we always bring our exhaust out the fenders usually. Sometimes we bring the exhaust up over here. Just depends on how much room we have and what we have going on and the sound that you're kind of desiring, how loud you want it to be. But yeah, we're just about wrapped up with this thing and ready to deliver it to the customer. So this is one of my personal cars, 86 Camaro that I Pro Streeted in 1992 just because I thought it would be cool to have, big steamroller tires in the rear of a car. And so then I started realizing that doesn't always equal traction. So that's when we started learning more about chassis stuff, about plotting instance centers on your 4-link or ladder bar, things like that. So this car has like a ton of first radiator fan shroud system, first breather system, first set of headers I ever did, first exhaust system I ever did. The engine's out currently. It made 1,030 horsepower. Last time the car was in operation, which I think was 2014. This car's been in storage since then. So, but I just had the bug to pull it out and do some street racing, and so it's going on a small tire now, and we're giving it about 250 more horsepower. So, engine's out of it. One of the cool things, like I know we were gonna get into some details about certain things. If you have a fiberglass hood that's pin on, and you want to operate it like normal. What we did on this one years ago is we cut the understructure of a hood out, gutted the whole center part of it, and then just bonded the hood to the actual fiberglass portion of the hood. So we bonded the metal structure to the fiberglass portion of the hood, and now it just opens and closes and operates like a normal hood, but it's super lightweight. So we got to keep the latch and the secondary and primary latching system. So that was kind of a neat thing that you can do. It's pretty easy. Body shops, like auto body shops, can direct you on where to get the correct adhesive to do that. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so we have Travis's 02 Silverado that we've been building for him. It's a Lewis-built chassis that we ended up finishing. Lewis-built, I don't know if in the off-road world, if you heard of him, super quality stuff, really good at drawing, like a lot of SolidWorks design stuff. But we took the job on. We usually don't try to finish too many projects started by other people because it can be a little bit tough to keep the language the same. But this one was a super clean, really, really good platform to start from. So what we're working on now, hey Dallas, can I interrupt you? So what we're doing now is the tilt hood mechanism. We're designing that. Hey Nick, let's tilt this hood so we can see how it works. So everything's just tacked together. There's no strut rods on it, so it's a little funky as far as tilting, but once the strut rods and everything get on it, it'll work out really good. Should work pretty much effortlessly with one person, I'm thinking. So all the infrastructure, that's what we're designing now, the mechanism, everything that holds. These trucks don't have core supports, so all the lights are mounted to the understructure of the hood. And then we're actually gonna bond these pieces to the hood, if you can see this in here. There's clecos on the outside holding these on. The understructure will unbolt and this pad will stay here. So if you ever have to replace the fiberglass, you don't have to redo the understructure, you just have to redo the pads that mount it to the understructure. One of the things we did is we put the engine and transmission in it. We got the exhaust system built for this thing, our custom headers and exhaust. This is the AC condenser. We pretty much put superchargers on just about everything that we're building nowadays. So our fluid transfer lines have all these quick disconnect Wiggins fittings on them. So once we finish these lines that come around to here, if you wanted to take this line off from this breakaway point and this breakaway point, these Wiggins Adele fittings, you just unclip that. The clamshell opens up, pull the clamshell off, obviously you slide it out and around the tube. And then this just has an O-ring on this ferrule, an O-ring on this ferrule, and then the sleeve that slides over it. So you just slide the sleeve up and you can take the whole piece off. So super cool, very functional piece that makes it quick and easy to have maintenance on these things. These are just mock-up bolts in here, but so this distance here, let's just say this distance is 3 inches. You wanna make sure that you have like 2.875 of shoulder. You don't want the shoulder sticking out so that you tighten the nut up onto the shoulder, but you shoulder it properly so the shoulder of the bolt goes this distance completely, and then the nut is just capturing the threaded portion of the outside. So that these misalignment spacers for this heim or bushings or whatever you're pivoting on is riding on the shoulder of the bolt instead of the thread of the bolt. It makes it stronger. And then we designed the steering on this complete, like it's kind of hard to see. The steering box is over at Charlie at Power Steering Solutions, but you can see the aluminum link there. It has complete swing steer. One of the Achilles heels of the 2002 and the other Silverados that are of the same rack and pinion design, the rack is just super weak. So they get replaced. Like if you go out on a heavy weekend in this truck, you'll end up going through a rack almost every weekend, especially with 39 or 40-inch tires and all the extra leverage that the wheel and tire has against the rack and pinion itself. So we're also working on the inside. Next episode, we should have, he's gonna do a third seat in the rear, or it was originally designed for a third seat in the rear. So we're actually making a piece that puts 2 small seats in the rear because he has 2 kids. And then as they grow, we'll probably go into one large center seat in the middle, so it'll be a 3-seater. Exhaust is completed, so we're getting ready to finish closing out the floor and all the interior panels on the inside. We got the headliner panels done. These will actually get upholstered and then rebolted back up. You can see more Wiggins fittings. These are the hot and cold side of the radiator for the fluid transfer lines for the radiator. Tranny cooler lines will be hard lined as well like that. Fuel lines will be hard lined under the middle of the truck as well. We can move to the rear of the truck. We also have a bunch of modifications to do to the bed sides to get them to look properly and clear the 40-inch wheel and tire. So those are back. We just need to finalize the mounts for them. So next episode, we'll have all that bolted on as the mounts done and all that bolted on as well. You can see the rear exhaust exit here. We have a 105-gallon fuel cell and 2 spares that go back here in the rear. We haven't finished designing the spare tire holder. We'll probably end up using straps actually. But those are some of the things we need to finish up. We have to weld the bottom of the truck together and cut the window down. So normally the window lands right here. We'll actually bring the bottom portion of the window and the lip of the body up into this area here to clear all the radiator. And then we'll cut the bottom of the window, and then the window will go back in like it did factory with just a little bit smaller back window. As far as bringing the lower height up, you'll still be able to see out the back and through the rear view mirror, which will be nice. Bare brakes, big hubs. These have 2.5 snouts. They go all the way up to a 3.25 snout, which you need if you're gonna run 45 spline. Well, actually 45 spline works with a 2.5 snout. So if you wanna run 36 spline jumbo trophy truck axles, that's when you need the 3.25 snout. So these are the trailing arms that were built and designed for the 65 F100. So we're mid-build right now. This is the pocket where the coilover and the bypass shock go into. We use uniballs front and rear. We used to use 1 1/4 inch heim in the rear, but if you're really super hard on stuff, and Robbie Gordon can attest to this, that hind brake's in the rear. So now we go uniball. It's a fixed link, 60-inch center to center. You don't adjust that. You can adjust your pinion angle from the top links. There'll be a plate on the side of this and then overlays that go on it. These pieces stick out so you can capture the bolts through the shock through the plate system that goes on the outside of this. One other thing about our arms, so we decided to pocket the rear sway bar mount. So the heim joint will go down inside here in this pocket, but I like to run 2 spines the whole distance keyed into the top plate. A lot of guys will run a single spine, which is fine, but for the extra 3 pounds, you get considerable more strength just running 2 spines the whole distance of the trailing arm. Plus the inner spines are also welded to the uniball, and we'll do a wrap over the uniball cup. So pretty much the same weight as most trailing arms, but I would have to say 30% stronger, all chromoly. And then we can take it a step further and heat treat as well. We probably won't on these arms, but if we're getting super serious with trophy truck style race trucks, we will heat treat all these components. Why you're making so much noise?
Oh, that's usually
It's the sound of money, so you can't complain that much about it. Sound of progress, actually. Money sounds grubby. So here we have the all-wheel drive 69 Datsun 510 project with a Subaru drivetrain, which I know is complete blasphemy with the Datsun purists, but I don't really care, so. Anyways, yeah, I was given this 69 510 by a good friend literally 25 years ago, and it's been just sitting in storage ever since then, so we just decided, hey, let's pull that thing out and make it all-wheel drive. It'll be fun. Now, obviously, I would love to do like a Skyline drivetrain in this thing, but I'm just not going to sink that much money into this, so that's why we went Subaru. It's pretty cheap to find a WRX laying around, which we found one that had like 70,000 miles on it. T-boned in the side, didn't hit any of the suspension or anything, so this sweet looking jewel of an engine right here. Obviously it won't look like this when we're done, but we just have the engine and the transmission in right now just for mock-up purposes to design the chassis. So we got all the strut mounts done, lower control arms done, mid part of the chassis done. The body's actually gonna come up off of the chassis, so you could actually drive this thing around with without a body. And this one's gonna be pretty raw. We're not doing luxury interior, not doing a bunch of creature comforts. This is gonna be a down and dirty car for me to rip around town and just have fun in. So yeah, inside you can see the chassis. Let me open up this sweet 50-year-old door. So you can see on the corners over here, that's where the bolts are. Bolts the body to the chassis itself. We got the main platform of the chassis done, trans mounts done. These mounts are done for the rear control, or for the front control arm, for the rear mount of the front control arm. So now we're getting ready to mount seats just so we can get where our pedals are gonna be. We're gonna use Willwood floor mount pedals. We're gonna use, I did it tilt column in this thing. That way we can get the firewall built and we'll start going rearwards. We'll get the rear suspension group in, design the chassis around that. Intercooler's gonna be in the stock location of a WRX with a hood scoop, but there's no room for a radiator in the front, so we'll put the radiator in the rear with the fuel cell, and then we'll either use NACA ducts in the window, or I might do a cool roof scoop. So I guess on this, the best way to describe it is just picture miniature unicorn. Okay, so Aiden, pretty comfortable actually. So we have plenty of leg room now, so we'll have to bend that bar around the back of the seat.
Yeah.
But now that we're back this far, oh, and headroom's way better too. So this will be the plane that we'll have the seat in. Did you adjust the seat so that it's actually kicked back a little bit more?
No, I haven't adjusted it.
Okay.
No, it's just, right now,
let's just go up one in the front and down one in the rear, just to give it a little tilt. Okay. But I think placement's good as far as front to back. We have plenty of pedal room because we'll do a dead pedal. We need to get the front tire on, get it completely compressed and turned in to see how much clearance we have, because I have a feeling we're going to kick this tube out and come back into this mounting point right here, and then we'll build the firewall off of that, and that should give us plenty of room for pedals. This shifter's too far forward now, so what we'll do is we'll actually rebuild all this linkage assembly right here and just bring this back to here, turning brake up here. So I think it's working out really well, actually. One of our favorite builds here, because we love luxury pre-runners so much, 65 F100 single cab truck. I had a client that I was building this for that was on not a tight budget, but lesser of a budget than what we have now. I have a new client, has a bigger budget, so we're making some changes. The chassis was already completed before the new owner, but we're going bigger on the shocks. We're designing our own billet I-beams. We're probably going to do 7 series aluminum radius arms on this. We're upgrading to our rear links, bigger Fox shocks all the way around. Now it has, right now it currently rides on 2.5 coilovers, 3.5 bypasses all the way around. We're going to go up to a 3.0 coilover, 4.0 bypasses. And I know there's a lot of people who don't know what bypasses are. So this is a bypass shock. And what it does is each one of these tubes, there's a port in here and a valve in here. So as the shock piston travels past that, it forces fluid, and however you have that adjusted, that valve adjusted, determines how much fluid is allowed to bypass through that valve. And so what it does is it slows the piston down gradually, or on return, it lets it out at a certain speed. And so that's how you can tune that shock absorber to do what you want it to do over its stroke. We're gonna upgrade the rear end with a TubeWorks housing, which in our world just means the best of the best. They build the baddest housings on the planet, so we're excited to have that in here. We upgraded the fuel cell. We added, how much did we add on that, Nick? 16 gallons, I think? Yeah, so now we have 66 gallons instead of having 50-gallon fuel cell. Typical, a little bit different style-wise than what we do, but you can definitely tell that's kind of our signature when it comes to shock mounts, upper shock mounts. Tranny coolers in the back as always. Flip-up spare tire with the big trunk. The paneling's off the side so you can actually see the size of the actual trunk right there. So this thing also has, I'll show you guys in a little bit, but we have supercharged engines for just about everything we're doing. So this has a Maruzi built 418 supercharged LS3, the big new 2450 Magnuson supercharger. So I don't know how much horsepower we're gonna make with this, but a lot. I would say over 1200 on E85. So that's another thing that we have going on is gasoline's a limiting factor of horsepower, it seems like, so reliably. So you just need more octane, especially for street driving and goofing off. It's just nice to have that safety margin of a better fuel. So we'll run this thing on E85, but it'll also be flexible. So like with flex fuel sensors, Motec does it, I'm pretty sure, but I know the Holley Terminator setup and the Holley Dominator setup has that flexibility to sense the percentage of E85 in the fuel, and so it adjusts timing and boost accordingly so you don't hurt the engine. So throughout the episodes, one of the things that I'm super excited to share with everybody is the 49 Willys. We're so excited about this project. Tons of stuff to go over, and you're gonna just see this build from where we are now, obviously, until we're completely finished. I mean, same thing with all the other builds, but ultimately, this is the one that I'm hoping everybody follows the most, and we're gonna share a lot of. We have a 1949 Willys standard cab pickup that we've stretched into an extra cab. We wanted it to look factory. And when I say we, I need to touch base on that. I cannot do this without my guys. There's just no way to turn all the wheels. I have a super talented crew, really, really good guys. I don't know, I feel like my guys are family more than they're just guys that I work with. And so it's pretty awesome to have a good crew like this. But we wanted the cab to look like it came as an extra cab. We want it to look factory. So this B-pillar is actually out of a wagon. The rear windows behind the driver's windows don't roll up and down. So it just has like a regular larger window, and we shrunk this down, put the back corner of the actual cab on the original cab. So this B-pillar and this section right here is out of a wagon that we just shrunk down so that we have the proper belt molding, the indentations that the door have match. We're trying to portray that if Willys was to do an extra cab truck, this is what it would look like, or what we think it would look like. There's just an absolute ton, there's thousands of hours going into this thing. This is probably the most advanced off-road truck we've ever built. It's all-wheel drive. We have Triton Engineering's front end, and we can design in SolidWorks our own front end. This thing's already proven, already out there, already winning races. It was just a huge head start to buy this bulkhead. And when I say bulkhead, I don't know if you can see all this, but this actual upper shock mount bulkhead assembly up in here. So from here forward, all the upper and lower arms, the mounts, the differential that's actually welded into the bulkhead, and the spindles, all that stuff comes from Igor, already done, geometry figured out, ready to go. That's why it was such a huge head start. We've adapted, we like to use for big braking systems with a lot of weight, we use Jmar brakes. So we have Jmar brakes and rotors, actually Spider Trax rotors. Hey Nick. Yes, sir. So Spider Trax doesn't do this rotor, huh? We adapted this, we machined this. Yeah, Spider Trax makes the rotor hat. And so we have a big 14-inch Wilwood rotor with the big 6-piston J-Mark calipers. We're hoping it'll be the world's first luxury Ultra 4 truck. One of the other reasons we chose this front end is this front end is on all the rock crawlers that have independent front suspension. Not all, I'm sorry, but a lot of the successful rock crawlers that have independent front suspension instead of a front straight axle. I don't follow Ultra 4 racing super closely, so I'm not sure what class vehicle this goes in. I know I see straight axle stuff, I see independent stuff, but this thing's run on quite a few successful independent front suspension Ultra 4 cars. So currently we're doing all the firewall, closing out the cab, the floor, all the interior panels. Hey Nick, let's pull the hood off this thing real quick. So one of the other things that we're designing is we're gonna have the grille lift up with the hood. So the lights will be fixed in this position. And this is really cool that we get to show you, in upcoming episodes how this all came together. But the lights will be fixed in this position, and then the hood will go up, but the grille will go up with it, and then the bottom portion of the grille will remain around this area, what we can fit of it. The cool thing about this customer is, he just said, I want you to make sure you only have two things you really got to adhere to. A, it needs to resemble a 49 Willys pickup when you're done. I know you guys are going to modify everything heavily, like it's not going to look exact, but we want people that are into Jeeps to realize, oh cool, that's a Willys. The other thing is, they just want us to be enthused about the build, which they know if we're enthused about the build, they're just going to get a better product in the end. So let's lift this thing off, Nick. Here, let's walk it out that way. Yeah, now you can see the bulkhead a little bit better. These are just kind of laying in here right now where we have mounts for them on these tubes that are actually not in here at the moment. This also gets a big 418-inch Maruzi supercharged LS3, has a Whipple supercharger on it, one of the big Whipple superchargers on it. So we'll make over 1,000 horsepower with this as well. But what we've been doing is we've been diligently working on the firewall and all the interior panels. So we've got the firewall closed out, the steering done, the brake pedal mounts and the master cylinders are done. The front driveline's done, which is super neat. It's hard to see, but we have a bearing. We actually have two bearings machined into two aluminum pieces, and then they're sandwiched together with about 1,000 press fit between the two pieces, and then they're put into the actual mount itself. So that way that thing is a super strong carrier bearing, essentially, that just kind of mounts off to the side instead of from the bottom, but it keeps the front driveline from walking around, and we're going to put a bunch of horsepower to this thing and a bunch of torque, so we really don't want, we need things to be super strong. So this is an aluminum piece that unscrews, unbolts, and comes out from around the gas pedal. You may have to remove the gas pedal. Some trucks we can get it out around it, some trucks you can't. And then also these panels are removable as well, so that you can get to all of the shifter cables, the mechanisms that operate the transmission. On the other side, that's removable, so you can get to the transmission fluid transfer lines, those kind of things. So it's getting tight, but it's looking really good. Same thing as I was talking about on the 02 Silverado. All the panels, every interior panel is going to come out and get covered in leather. This one was a pretty fun one. We had to half tank roll both sides and complete this radius around the window so that when it's wrapped, it goes right up against the actual gasket that holds the back window in. So it should look pretty sexy. Some of the features that we're super excited about with this particular project is we have two Holley Pro Dashes, which if you look up a Holley Pro Dash, you can change all the configurations of the gauges. You can actually, it's touchscreen, so you can add switches on it. It's just, I don't know, Nick, what do you think? Like it's just crazy how expandable it is, huh?
Yeah. The layout, the shift points, everything.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah. You can have what gear you're in. Like you can have sensors for just about anything. You can do shock travel sensors if you want. Like there's so much stuff that you can do. It's so expandable and versatile. It's pretty amazing unit. Holley's really come a long way with just all their electronic products. So we'll use a Holley Dominator system for this vehicle to control all the fuel and engine management system, and that ties in with the actual Pro Dashes themselves and gives all the information to the Pro Dashes. So there'll be two 12-inch Pro Dashes in here, one in front of the driver, one in front of the passenger over here. And then in the middle, we'll actually have an iPad mini, so you can have like lead navigation on there, things like that. We'll have two Switch Pro units that control all the functions of the vehicle. We're super tight and out of room, so we had to snake the EVAP box up underneath there. That's the smallest one that Vintage Air makes that does heat, cool, and defrost. So our electronics will end up underneath the center console here. And we have them out, but this thing has two sticks for the transfer case, the Atlas transfer case, and then it has a large handle for the turning brake, which are currently not in the vehicle, but in the next episode, I'm sure all that stuff will be in. I don't know why, this is a very inexpensive seat from Corbeau, but it is extremely comfortable. So sometimes we use these, we use PRP a lot, we use Mastercraft a lot, but the Corbeaus, when my upholstery guy's done with this thing, it'll look like the most luxurious, high dollar, high end seat that you've ever seen. So the customer thought it was comfortable, so we went with this. We chose these for this particular build. Plus, sometimes the PRPs and some of the others don't always fit, and so these just happen to fit this vehicle quite well. I was talking about this earlier. Now you can see like how this thing is completely together. I know we only have the 2 spines exposed and then these recesses exposed where to access the shock bolts, where the shock shafts go down into the arm. This arm has an external sway bar mount where the other one we pocketed the inside. Just to, like when you're building this stuff, it's fun to just try to one up yourself every single time. That's the cool thing about the progression, and we just push each other. Like we're just bouncing ideas off each other all the time, which makes it super fun. You just get excited to come to work sometimes and you're like, oh man, I just thought of something so cool. I can't wait to execute that. And that's the fun of it. That's the coolest thing about fabrication, because fabrication is problem solving all day, every day. That's pretty much what it is. And so it's kind of neat to be able to incorporate that and just one up yourself every time. King shocks all the way around, front and rear, big 3.0 coilovers on all 4 corners, King Kong 4.0s on all 4 corners. I think we have 7 tube bypasses on this. So that's another thing I wanted to explain about bypass shocks. I explained, just a loose idea of how they work. But the more bypass tubes you have, the more control over those zones that you have. So you can really progress the rate of how it slows the piston down inside the shock shaft or inside the cylinder. We have all our trans coolers, our batteries will go here. We'll have 2 Odyssey batteries here, our radiator, and then above the radiator there, we have the overflow tank and the surge tank. And in the back, we have Harman fuel cell. We usually work with Harman. They've been very good to us over the years. They've done tons of fuel cells for us. Their turnaround time's pretty good. We're trying to get as much weight on the back of this truck as possible. So most off-road, well, all off-road trucks, if you can get 56 to 58%, even 60% of weight in the rear, it really helps with traction and how the truck handles on pretty much every plane. In the car world, it's a little bit different. All your changing weight, you want to be centralized in the center of the car if possible. Off-road trucks, a little bit different, more of a pendulum effect where you have weight hanging out in the front because of the engine, so you're trying to get as much weight in the back. A lot of times we'll do a mid-mount fuel cells. We're going away from that. We're trying to get all our fuel cells in the rear of the truck. We have been assured by all of our shock tuners, even though fuel is almost 7 pounds a gallon and you have 100 gallons of fuel, then you have basically 700 pounds of fuel on the back of your truck. So as that weight changes, the truck gets lighter. I've been assured they can tune through that. And as proof, just look at any trophy truck ripping through the desert, whether it's low on fuel. I'm sure it drives differently, but it still handles, quite well. So we're building this heavy on the back on purpose because I couldn't move the engine back because of the transfer case. So we're just trying to get as much weight on the rear of the vehicle as we can. There'll be a trunk here. I want to keep the Jeep tailgate. This is going to flip down, and then this spare tire assembly, as heavy as it is, we're only going to carry a single spare, but we decided to do all this out of plate work, round tube on the perimeter, it adds a ton of strength, but actually adds a ton of weight as well. So usually we're weight conscious on our builds until we got to the back section of this thing. We're on purpose trying to make it pretty heavy so we have good traction and good handling. And another cool thing that we like to do is we like to build bulkheads for stuff. Normally this would be laced out in tubing, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's super strong. But we decided on this particular build just to go into bulkheads with plate work on everything, integrate the sway bar mounting all the way up into the bump stop mount. Another thing to get into is a bump stop. It's just a hydraulic bump stop. So you put nitrogen, as you do in the shocks, you also do in the bump stop, nitrogen and oil. It has valving on the inside that controls the rate of how this closes. And so when you come to bump, you don't bump on something hard. You actually bump on this and then stroke this all the way down to where that fully compresses. And it just helps smooth out the very, very last stroke of the rear suspension system, or front as well. All right, so here's the new shop. We built this in 2019, so it's about 3 years old now, but I wanted a place to be able to bring clients and have a drink and discuss the build and the particulars of what they're looking for. So we went ahead and did a full kitchen in here with did concrete countertops, undermount refrigerators, dishwasher, microwave, copper farm sink, the most awesomest appliance on the planet, ice maker, gotta have that. Big TV, surround sound. We just try to make it nice, like have a nice lounge area to hang out with friends or clients or whatever, and entertain, when necessary. So this whole building was supposed to be for me just to store my personal vehicles in. And it's kind of turned into an assembly area where we can keep, you know, this, like when car comes back from paint on the dolly, we can take it off the dolly, get the suspension on it, and then we get it up here, and then we do final assembly up here where it's climate controlled and clean and nice. So epoxy floors. Like I said, seems like we do a lot of assembly up here instead of it just being regular parking for my personal stuff. So this is my favorite place, actually. I spend a lot of time out here. It's good. And it's climate controlled, so if it's hot, it's cool in here. If it's cold, it's hot in here, or warm. Anyways, that's the $3 tour. Oh, I will show you this. I thought this was neat. So I hid all the air reels up in the attic. So when you need air, you just pull that down. We made those cool U-stations or cups just for the stopper ball to stop in. But I just thought that was kind of a cool feature. And then we have compressed air on this one, but it's manifolded to the other shop. So if we have a compressor failure, one compressor still keeps us going while we're repairing the other compressor. So that's kind of a cool thing. We don't need to see the bathroom, but it's nicer than the bathrooms in my house by far. So it's got a cool shower. I always wanted a stand-up urinal in my shop, so it has one of those. So just kind of cool stuff. Like and subscribe if you can. Drop a comment. I like to interact with people, so I'll answer all the questions you have. And I'll see you guys next time. Hopefully catch the next episode.